Hi everybody, thanks for joining us today for our second segment of INCLUDEnyc Live, Real Conversations on Parenting and Disability. I'm Podvesker, and here with me today is our special education expert, Ruth, the Truth DiRoma. Today we're going to answer your questions on special education. We hope to get to everything and everyone, but if we run out of time, please call our free resource line at 212-677-4660. The resource line is one of the many different ways we help parents. To find out more, please give us a call or visit us online at INCLUDEnyc.org. Today we're speaking on special education, but we also help parents with other things related to disabilities in a wide range of ways, such as connecting parents with places that do things such as independent evaluations, where to find after-school tutoring, recreational programs, a special needs dentist. These are some of the things we help parents with, as well as finding parent support groups, and we help parents understand other service systems, such as the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities, which are Medicaid waiver services. We also go to schools and community-based organizations to do workshops on topics related to students with disabilities, and those are topics such as transitioning from preschool to school age, understanding your child's IEP, assistive technology, and we do a lot of work here with transition-age folks, and what that is helping parents and individuals with disabilities figure out what to do and how to prepare for life after high school. Okay, so let's get to it. Great. So we have a question. Guys, if you could just scroll up so we could see who that's from. Does it say? Doesn't say. Okay. Thank you, whoever sent in that question. Oh, Ted, thank you for that question. I think my son would benefit from assistive technology device. How do I know what kind is right for him, and how do I get it? Great question, Ted. Thank you. Ruth, talk to us.
Great. Well, assistive tech is kind of the way to go nowadays, and one of the ways you can figure that out is by going to several different programs and taking a look to see what's available.
Ruth, let me stop you for a second. For people who don't know what assistive technology is,
Sure.
Do you want to just say a few words on that?
Sure. Assistive tech can be anything from the use of a computer, a tablet, anything from a FM headset for a child who might be very distractible, and the teacher wears a microphone and talks into the microphone, and it's broadcast directly into the earpieces of the student.
So for kids who may have auditory processing issues,
Exactly.
what this does is it helps filter out the background noise, and so the student can directly hear what the speaker is saying with less interference.
Precisely. And so there are many different kinds of assistive tech. There's assistive tech that will help with speech. There are assistive techs that will help to point out their needs, their wishes, their wants. So it's
desires.
And desires. Absolutely. Thank you. Right. And so definitely. And one way of going about looking at it is, first of all, does your child currently use a computer? Do they like to play on the computer? Are they, kind of excited when they get on it? If things like that are possible, then maybe look into it to take your child to the next step. Because if they're comfortable, that's the first step. So we really, there are different places. There's the Cognitive Cafe. There is at UCP. There is the TechWorks, which has a wide variety of things that you can actually touch and play with hands-on, and it's really wonderful. So if you'd like to see what's there, because it may bring out ideas that you never even thought about, and it's something to take a look at. Basically, the first step is when you're speaking with the school. If you've got a child with an IEP, ask for an assisted tech evaluation. It is a separate evaluation, just as there would be like a speech language evaluation or an occupational therapy. Assistive tech is a separate evaluation, and they will sit with a professional who will speak with them, who will work with them, will see what they need, and a whole series of tests are given. And you very easily could present this at your child's IEP meeting. And if it's decided that your child needs this assistive tech, please get it for them. One of the things that we really are stressing to our parents is to make sure not only does your child need to know how to use the assistive tech, both you and your child's teacher should know how to use the assistive tech. It's not good enough to have your kid sitting in a classroom and let's say the battery dies. Somebody needs to know how to put the new battery in.
Yeah, that's a great point. So aside from working here, I'm also the parent of a 13-year-old who's delightful and is nonverbal and uses an AAC device, which is part of assistive technology. And it is a mini iPad that has pictures along with the text in which Jack, my son, presses the picture and the voice outputs.
Right.
And one of the most important things about him having this device and service, aside from allowing him to communicate, is that, like you said, we as parents get trained on it so we can model it and know how to use it, and also work with the therapist to get information in there and talk with the teachers and get the curriculum proactively programmed so when it's presented, he's engaged. One of the things that Ruth mentioned was was asking for an evaluation, and I think it's important when parents do this that they put it in writing.
Yes.
And this is one of the many things that we help parents do here at Include. Exactly. And so if you think your child may benefit from it, and there's a wide range of students, so it's really to help students interact with their environment more and more on their ability based on what their needs are, and that's what the evaluation will determine, what they are. So I think it's important to spend one more minute on this because...
And the teachers, let's talk about the professionals at school. They really do need to know how to use this, the equipment. I've heard of cases where the child was outfitted with assistive technology, but when they got to school, the teachers didn't know how to use it, and it kind of sat on the kid's desk going unused. Yeah. That's sad. Yeah. So we really want to make sure that the parents know how to use it, and also because if your child has similar technology at home or can bring this technology home with them, you want to make it part of their life. It's something that's ingrained into everything that they do. So they shouldn't only be able to communicate at home. They should be able to communicate throughout their day.
And again, just want to spend another minute here. I think assistive technologies and that wide range of programs and applications, and for kids with muscular issues or kids with sensory issues or kids with processing issues who may have a hard time writing. For example, my guy doesn't know to put enough pressure on the pen or pencil processor in a laptop to type instead of writing. And so there's lots of programs and devices that help kids in those ways. Okay, Paula, thank you so much for your question. Hi. I like the exclamation point. My daughter's teacher said that she's doing better, but I know she is behind. How do I know what doing better means? Amazing question, Paula. Thank you.
Great. Hey, Ruth. Yay! Okay. What we're hoping is that that your daughter Paula is doing better. But what does that mean? What is she coming home with? What do her tests look like? What does her homework look like? Is she completing her homework? When she gets to school, is she handing it in and is the teacher putting check or kind of see me on it? Mm-hmm. We really do need to know that. How far behind was she when she started from doing better? Were the goals realistic? And that's one of the things that I think every parent should really look into.
Are you talking about IEP goals?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, IEP goals, I'm sorry. But truly, what is she expected to do, and where along that continuum is she expected to be currently? When, if you're still unsure, I guess the best thing to do would be to ask for an evaluation. And you can do that at any time. You don't have to wait until a whole year goes by or an end year. But if you feel that you need information, talk to any kind of teachers, providers, and of course talk to your child. If your child says, I'm still struggling, and the teacher says, well, she's doing better, it's the struggle that we're concerned with. And we want to make sure that they are making progress, and progress at a reasonable rate, but progress that is actually, kind of being self-gratifying and actually moving your child forward. Again, keep close watch on anything that's brought home. Parent-teacher conferences are really important for you to go to speak with the teacher. And I always tell parents, when we go into a parent-teacher conference, all the good stuff is on the board.
That's right.
And if it's our kids, sometimes we don't see our kids' stuff up there. Bring it with you, please. Bring those tests, bring those papers, bring the incomplete homework, and talk to the teacher saying, I really appreciate all the effort you've put in, but please, can you explain to me why we think she's not getting this, or what is progress, and is this progress enough for her to go forward? The last thing you really, you're hoping not to get towards the end of the year is something about promotion and doubt. So we really do need to keep on top of it. It is between you, your child, and the teacher that you're going to get the best picture. And again, if your child has an IEP and there are any providers, please talk to them and try and get their names and numbers during the course of the year. It's really good for you to be in touch with the child's providers. It's not enough. Very often parents will say, well, I really didn't know what they're doing in speech. Please, we need you to reach out to the providers and say, can you give me your report? Can you tell me what's going on? So progress and doing better are kind of vague words, so we want to pin it down.
Yeah, so if your child has an IEP, you should be getting what is known as progress reports a few times a year on your child's IEP. It'll say the frequency of when you should be getting these. And basically what progress reports are there are report cards in relation to the goals on your child's IEP. And so in the beginning of the year, you most likely will get a report that says your child is working towards meeting the goals. In the middle, they've made progress. At the end, hopefully, they've reached their goals, and the goals will be rewritten. One of the important things that Ruth said is getting to know who your child's providers are. And I have found it helpful as a result of working here, learning these strategies, that in the beginning of the school year, we get letters sent home in Jack's backpack stating who the therapist is with contact information, and reaching out to those providers right from the get-go, sharing our contact information and asking them what is the best way for us to communicate.
Yes.
Not that I'm going to be a suffocating parent or a helicopter parent, not because I can't be, because I can if needed,
It's okay.
like all of us, but asking, is it okay to email you? Is it okay to check in? And always setting up next steps. You don't have to wait for the progress reports to come.
Mm-hmm.
Go with your gut. Also, I'm loving all the questions. We're going to get to them in a second. It's really important for people to know that a school cannot take away services just because a child is doing better. A school cannot take away services just because a child gets a 3 or a 4 on, the tests. There needs to be an evaluation done first that shows where a child is developmentally as it relates to their chronological age, and if they've met their goals and what their needs are before services can be taken away. Doing better is not the recipe, right?
And
no
there's
longer
also
receiving support.
a phase-out period. If your
Right.
child has, in fact, reached a certain goal, and people decide that maybe they don't need that particular service or support any longer, there can be a phase-out period of a year that the service can continue, maybe less frequently, but the services can be continued to make sure that they are stable at that goal and moving forward. So don't think that the minute something is better, you're losing everything. You are just going to phase out and make sure that your child is still able to complete her tasks.
This is why we call Ruth the truth. You're spot on, sister, spot on. Okay, so we have another question from Olivia Schenker. Thank you. Whoop. Is my child's school allowed to dictate who I bring to an IEP meeting?
No, absolutely not. Your child.
Same one, Ruth.
You can bring anyone you would like. I would like you to introduce the person. You can bring, in fact, you should bring someone, and that's what's even more important. For any of us, myself included, Lori included, and just about anyone I was talking to out there in the world, we know what it feels like to be in an IEP meeting. It's all the professionals, us. And it can be very daunting. As friendly as we all want to be, it's still the professionals and us. So it's a good idea to bring somebody, because that other person is another set of eyes and ears. They're going to hear things that you don't hear. Remember, they're talking about your kid, and your kid is an emotional object to you. This is the person. This is your little person. So you really want to make sure that you're hearing what they're saying. And especially, you want to be able to take it in, take notes, and ask questions. It's a really good idea to bring a friend, a relative, and anybody who's been through any of my workshops knows about my crazy friend Robert, who would sit next to me at IEP meetings and who would just go, "Calm down, Ruth. Calm down, Ruth," just to make sure that I was hearing everything. And afterwards, Robert and I would compare notes and kind of decide on what they said, what they meant by that, and we would kind of come together and figure out, did we hear everything? So it's a good idea. You are also entitled to bring anyone. You can bring, or have on the phone. You should be there in person. I never want to hear that you're not going to be there, but you should be there in person. But you can have somebody, be it a professional, a provider. If your child is getting occupational therapy, certainly have the occupational therapist on the line if they can't be there with you. Again, a friend, relative, provider, someone who has worked with your child, if necessary, a medical doctor, if necessary, someone who knows your child in and out, who's worked with them, who knows your child's reactions, who understands what better means.
That's right.
To your child. And also, one of the other things that you can ask for is a parent member. And I know in this office that's a big thing to us, because both myself and Jean Mizutani, who's one of the other family educators, we've been training the parent members in all the boroughs to sit in out at these IEP meetings. They are parents like yourselves who have children with an IEP, who can sit with you, can help define some of the acronyms and letters. And
thank you, Lynn, by the way.
Yes, I see that online here. Hi, Lynn. She was one of mine. So we want you to know that there are people. You have to. It used to be automatic. It no longer is. You have to ask in writing 72 hours.
You're not asking for permission. You're letting them know
that we want a parent member.
Right.
Right. So basically, but you have to request 72 hours in advance in writing that a parent member be present and sit with you at the meeting. They're not your lawyer, they're not your advocate, but they are your support person.
That's right.
So it's a wonderful thing to have, because they're smart. And they do this because they believe in the process.
Yeah, just a few more words on this, that, you were saying that it's emotional when you're in your child's IEP meeting. And I know for me, it often feels scary because it's the unknown. And
I walked out crying many times. So
right? It is scary. And so you have the right as a parent to take a break anytime during the meeting. If you need a break, take care of yourself. Ask for 2 minutes, step out, get water, You need to make a phone call. I know I've gone and like said a Hail Mary prayer. You know, you do what you have to do. You can also ask for the meeting to reconvene another time if that's really intense. The other things that I think are really helpful when it comes to IEP meetings are, you know, in addition to looking over your notes, thinking about what's working, what's not, what you want, how you see the future, is, you know, if you go with your partner or your husband or your wife, figuring out in advance who's going to talk, making sure you have shared goals. I know for me and my partner, we develop nonverbal communication. So if one of us was saying too much, we would go like this, which would mean zip it, right? And, you know, figuring out what your goals are. Okay, so we're reading the questions. So is there anything above there that we missed? Okay, Victoria, thank you. This is a doozy of a question. If the school wants a student to repeat a grade, can the parents refuse?
Well, that is a concise question with a huge answer.
And there's not one global answer to that question.
I guess my first question would be what? And what has happened that the child needs to repeat a grade, or what hasn't happened?
Yeah, right.
And when have you found this out? If you found it out at the end of the year, why wasn't this noticed all the way through? Let's answer the question. Can a parent refuse? Yes, you could refuse, but I think it's a larger issue. And the larger issue is, was your child getting the correct services? Were they in the right class? Mm-hmm. Were they with children like themselves who also needed other supports and services? What was going on to make this problem come up at this point in time so that your child is being left back? I think, and I don't want to say experts, but I will say, are saying more often, it's not a good idea to hold children back, because when their friends start moving, makes them feel, it really does something to their self-esteem. Parents very often feel when the child is entering kindergarten that maybe that's the time. So it's not really being held back. It's just kind of, they want them to age up.
They call that red shirting.
Yes. Oh, really?
Yeah.
That sounds like
a common history word. I don't know why.
It sounds like a political statement. So at least that's what. But so basically, but I think that it's a much larger issue. If your child was not in the right placement, if the child was not performing during the course of the year, I think, and I've told this to many parents, maybe what we have to do is think forward. Mm-hmm. Maybe next year, if they went into a different kind of program or class, that would make up being left back. If your child, let's say, is in a general education class or an ICT class.
Please, ICT define.
Integrated co-teaching. 2 teachers in the room, regular size class, up to 40% of the kids in the class may have IEPs and some get special education services.
2 teachers.
Special ed teacher, general ed teacher.
Okay.
I was one.
And guys, please, for those of you with us today, if you have any questions about the language, because special education is full of
language,
of acronyms and a whole lexicon upon itself, please ask us. We will do our best to not use acronyms, but it's inevitable, and we apologize in advance.
It's kind of the way we're wired at this point, so we're kind of wired into the acronyms of.
Which, you know, I also want to say that navigating the system is very complicated, and that everyone needs to be nice to themselves and reach out for help. We're here. There's other organizations like us out there, and that you're not alone, and this stuff is scary, and it's cumbersome, and it's confusing, and that we're here to help. Okay, so Vicki, thank you.
I think Vicki's question is very similar.
Let's read it.
Can a child with an IEP be held back? Again, I think we have to put this into the bigger picture. Why is that child being held back?
Well, I'm going to freeze for a second. So the answer is a child with an IEP can be held back, but what Ruth is saying is why. We want to know why. And this is a perfect example of the type of work that we do, one-to-one, with parents, helping them understand. Many times parents call us with pressing issues, and it takes some time working one-on-one with parents and gathering information and finding out details and finding out history and finding out what the disabilities are and the school programming, and that all of those factors go into the relationship of why a student with an IEP may be held back. There is not a global answer, and there is something on IEPs called modified promotion criteria, which has to do with the extent of the curriculum that is presented to a student that he or she has to master in order to go on to the next grade. And so that is on everyone's IEP. That
Sometimes you see it as percentages, and parents actually say, what does that mean? What is 80% or 40%? And that is modified criteria.
Right. So if, for example, on a student's IEP, if it says 60%, exactly, that means if the student is getting 60%, they will not be held back. It doesn't necessarily mean if they're getting less. That's a different conversation. But really, this is something that I think is answered on an individual basis.
And that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and that's what we're here for. We put up our resource line number before, along with our email address. And if anyone has any questions about anything, our short email that you can reach us at is info@includenyc.org. All right, Elizabeth. I asked for an evaluation because my son needs special education services. Oh, great question. But the psychologist said that since it was June and school would close soon, I should wait until September to ask. Is that true?
Well, Elizabeth, I wish you'd asked a little. Well, Elizabeth, I wish you'd asked a little earlier. It is, they're all cleaning up their desks and running around in the school building. But that doesn't mean that the Department of Ed shuts down. They keep working. As soon as possible, please, in writing, please put it in writing to the school-based support team,
yep,
or the principal, and get that letter in. I think
with a date.
Yes. Keep a copy of it. Make sure you either get a receipt or send it certified. Do something so that you have some documentation, and basically say that you feel that your child needs to be evaluated as soon as possible. They can do it during the summer. It may not. The problem with that is it may not be the teachers who are familiar with your child.
Or at the school. There's regional special education offices that typically coordinate evaluations over the summer. One of the things we haven't talked about yet is that special education is guided by the federal special education law called the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. And that law has no calendar. Exactly. And so, it goes right into that your child can be evaluated during the summer. If you go to our website, too, in our resource section, we have a tip sheet on how to write letters, which includes a letter asking for an evaluation. So like Ruth said, you would write it to your principal, address it, you would put the date. I'm writing today to officially request my son to be evaluated for special ed services.
Put the words out of my mouth.
There I go. 1 or 2 sentences why, that's it. You don't want to put too much there, just 1 or 2 sentences why. Look forward to hearing from you, whatever you feel comfortable, 10 calendar days, 10 business days by the end of this month. And you want to put your contact information to make it as easy as possible for them to reach you. Look forward to hearing from you in 10 business days. I can be reached at with your cell phone and email. Sincerely, you. Okay? Perfect. Ursula.
Okay.
How do you follow up after an IEP meeting? What recommendations do you have? When can you expect to get an update of the draft? Is it a good idea to send a thank you email to all the providers who were present? Or is that overbearing? That is a fantastic question.
Wow. I've never thanked anybody at a thank you meeting. It's a very interesting thought.
Can you scroll up one more time?
You can't see the top.
Can't see the top again. So,
okay.
I'm going to read that one more time because there's a lot to unpack there. How do you follow up after the IEP meeting? What recommendations do you have? What do you expect? When can you expect to get an update of the draft of the IEP, which is the Individualized Education Plan? Is it a good idea to send a thank you email to all the providers present at the meeting? Want to take this, Ruth?
Sure. That's what we do. So, at the meeting, hopefully the way it's supposed to be done, and that is with a quote,
Theory, not practice.
Sorry, yes. They will be working on that draft. They will be actually putting the draft into the computer or talking to you and asking you what your concerns are, kind of, describing the different evaluations, what the evaluations held, who saw what they think may be good program, good services, placement, all the things that are going into that IEP should be discussed at the meeting. Basically, they're supposed to be finalizing that IEP while you're still there, so that you know pretty much what you're going to get.
But you shouldn't get there and the IEP is already done.
Right.
Remember that. You're part of the team and the decision making.
And you also want to make sure that what they're talking about is new stuff, that they're not rehashing the old stuff. And by law, they cannot do that. There has to be a new IEP. They can't be crossing out and whiting out and things like that. They should be writing a new IEP for a new year with your child's correct information, which is why, yes, you do want a copy of the IEP.
Yeah, and so what I do is I take notes during the IEP meeting, and a day later I come back to it after I've had time to process. And if there are instances that require next steps, I will put it in writing. I'm one that does not put things in email when it comes to official things. There's many 100%. Different feelings about this. There's no right or wrong. It's what's best for you. Right. But for me, it feels better, or it feels more concrete, or there's more legal
standing.
Thank you to it. To put it in writing, what those next steps are, or this is what I heard. Thank you for your time. The question of, is it a good idea to send, a thank you email? Yes. If that's what you want, absolutely. Do you have to? Absolutely not. It's what works best for you, what your comfort level is, and there's no right or wrong.
Right. There may be people there that you don't really know. I mean, that is true. You may not ever really know who they are then or ever again. But if you know people who have spoken up on your behalf, and especially on behalf of your child, remember, this meeting is about your child.
Right.
So if you want to thank them on behalf of your child, or even better yet, I bet they'd love to get a thank you from your child themselves.
Oh, totally.
Because this is all about your kid. And no matter how you look at these things, remember, what we want you to do is we want you to speak from the point of view of your child. Very often when I'm talking to parents and they say, I want, I wish, and I always kind of say to them, it's not you. We're talking about your son, your daughter, and we're saying that this is what they need. And so when you talk, one of the things that we've told parents for a long time, kind of stack the deck a little bit. Bring a picture of your kid.
Yes.
How can they say no to this space?
And it's easy to do with cell phones now. And I admit, and I hope not everybody on my kids' IEP team is listening, I go for the sucker punch, and I find the cutest picture of my kid to show them, to humanize it. So it's not abstract, it's more personal. And, so they can connect on an emotional level. One of the things I learned early on, as a professional parent, was going into IEP meetings thinking I was a professional. The rock star Jean Mizutani here told me, as soon as I started, that going in thinking I'm a professional will help. It'll level the playing field. It'll take away the anxiety and all that emotional stuff that goes along. And starting off the meeting by saying we all want what's best for your child. And that lends itself to what you were saying, is that what I want for my kid is most likely what everybody wants.
Right.
And so being mindful of the tone and not pointing fingers and figuring out next steps. I think very often because of the system and the culture, and it's aggressive, it's litigious, we go into meetings feeling defensive that we're not going to get what we want. that we are not mindful enough of how we're saying what we're saying. So it's not necessarily what, but how. And, trying to keep the focus on the kid at all times really helps.
Right, and I agree 110%.
Oh.
Thank you. So, but truthfully, we really want you to understand that, they're doing their jobs and you're doing your job. You, as Lori said, you're the professional parent. You know your kid better than anyone else.
Go with your gut, people.
And it's up to you to get that across. The love you have for your kid, the concern, the future that you want them to be able to have. This is the things that you need to get across. Being on the same team, thanking the people who've spoken up for your child is really important. We want to work together and make sure that you get what you need for your child. And any way that you can accomplish that, by all means do. To get back to that question a little bit though, is definitely, you should expect to get a copy of the IEP. And please, again, go through it. And if you don't understand us, that's why we have the resource line. I cannot tell you how many phone calls we get where people call us and say, I've got the IEP, but I'm not sure what they wrote here.
Yeah.
You can fax it to us, you can email it to us, we'll take a look at it, we read them, and then we can get on the phone with you, and we can go through it and explain to you what they saw and what they are planning. It's a good idea because there is some time limitations. You do want it to go into effect. They're waiting for you to sign off, and this is another thing. When you go into an IEP meeting, you're going to sign the attendance form. Parents always say, well, I'm not going to sign the IEP. You're not actually signing the IEP. You will get what is called a final notice of recommendation, an FNR. It's the FNR that you sign off on. But you want to make sure that you agree with the recommendations on that IEP. In fact, our name is actually on those FNRs.
Yeah, and what I want to say is that what the process has been is that an IEP, after an IEP, it goes into effect automatically within 10 days.
Right.
So parents should get copies either sent home by school, or if your child goes to a non-public school or a charter school or a parochial school, you will get a copy in the mail. And that unless you disagree in writing
Immediately.
Yeah, or even not immediately. It helps if it's immediately because you get to the next step quicker. You are agreeing. So let me say that again because that's a lot to unpack. Unless you disagree in writing, which means that you follow up with a letter like we talked about before, and put in writing that you disagree with the recommendations on the IEP, which could be goals, which could be related services like speech OT, which could be the type of placement. Maybe you think your child should be in a more restrictive setting, a self-contained class, but they are recommending an ICT. Maybe what's on the IEP is not what you came out of that meeting thinking was going to be on the IEP.
Things sometimes change.
Yeah, and this is another way that we help parents. If you need to call us, please do. And put in writing that you disagree. And so what happens is that letter will trigger another meeting. Okay, so Paula, I don't think my daughter's para is a good fit. Can I request a different one?
That's a question that we've had before. Yes, you can request a different one. I've even had parents who said, well, my child had a particular para for 2 years. Can she continue with my child? Yes, it would be nice to request that. Does the school have to do that?
Yeah, good point. They're not entitled, or nor are they legally bound to provide that.
You can't. The Department of Ed has to provide your child with service. They may not have to provide your child with the specific person that you're requesting. I know of some paras. I've actually spoken to one. We had a nice conversation on a bus one afternoon going to a workshop. But she said that she'd been with a particular child and completely changed his behaviors. And she loved that child dearly. And she'd been with him for 3 years. And I said, how very wonderful that is. But that's kind of not the norm. The norm is that and provide your child with a service. Just as you cannot always ask for, say, a specific model or an iPad or tablet or computers or schools, right? They have to provide those appropriate, but is legally required specifics.
And so, this goes to having open and ongoing communication with the school from the beginning. And what I'm saying is, what I'm going to imply is that if you have a good relationship with, teachers, therapists, administrators, they're more likely to work with you and meet you in the middle than not. Firm believer that the system is not malicious.
Mm-hmm.
They're not out to get us.
Educate our kids.
People are doing the best they can with
Right.
what they have. It's just a huge system. Okay, Olivia, thank you. I'm not sure I want my child to be reevaluated. Can I waive a reevaluation?
Well, Olivia, my question would be to you, why do you not want your child to be reevaluated? And I understand that you feel that sometimes parents feel that this is a lot of extra tension or whatever on your child. But the truth of the matter is, the more we know, the better services we can get for your child.
Yeah.
So there's reasons for that, for the evaluations. I can understand if it's really, kind of anxiety producing or something of that nature. But truthfully, the more information we have to see if progress has been made, see if they haven't made progress, if they need something more. Sometimes as children age, things change. Hormones, all sorts of things play into this. And yes, teenagers. So we really think that if you can, and it is within reason, and unless you have some real specific reasons that you don't want your child that reevaluated, personally, as someone who's heard this many times, I would tell you to go forward. If you don't want to, though,
You don't have to. So, just technical information is
Yeah.
that once a year, you should have at least one meeting to review your child's IEP. They call those annuals. Once every 3 years, which is called a triennial,
or a
reevaluation, language is tricky, the school has to offer to reevaluate your child. And so when you have your annual review meetings, you're looking at the goals, kind of similar to the progress report, but from the lens of the year, not just in a smaller amount of time. But triennials are when they actually do standardized tests. It could be, processing academics. It could also be in certain disciplines such as speech, OT, and you will get a letter sent home asking for your permission and your signature. But the school still has the right to do that, and they can reevaluate your child even if you do not give consent for triennials. And I think that's important for people to know. Okay, Lucy, although it's summer, I'm always preparing for the next school year. If there's one piece of a daily reminder I can tell myself for my child's first day of school, what would it be?
Enjoy.
So Ruth says enjoy. So I need to read that again. Although it's summer, I'm always preparing for the next school year. If there's one piece of advice or a daily reminder I can tell myself for my child's first day of school, what would it be? Yeah. Okay. So I know we don't have a lot of time left, so let's get this question. Cheryl, how does one find out which IEP teachers or teachers that support IEP support services have licenses in teaching methodologies in Wilson, Linda New, and L Revolution? So that's a really good question. And I think what Cheryl is asking is, how do you find out the credentials of your child's providers and teachers? And yes, so my first step would be asking the teacher. My next step would be asking an administrator. So for those of you who don't know, Wilson is a decoding reading program, which is really coming back.
I think you mean Linda Mood Bell and
Linda Mood Bell, right?
That's what it is. Linda Mood Bell and Learning Revolution.
So the first step would be to ask your child's teacher if you are interested in having a provider with those credentials or the service. I would ask an administrator in your child's school. I would also then reach out to the superintendent's office. Remember, guys, they changed the structuring of the Department of Ed, and within every school district, there's a superintendent, and within every superintendent's office is a person who leads the work in that region on special education, and they will know who and where have those credentials and programs.
I think what I'm also seeing there in a larger question here is these are techniques and teaching methodologies that programs that work very specifically for children with learning disabilities. Yep. So there are, places that you can go. You can actually, but remember, if it is a provider that is hired by the Department of Ed, they will have their credentials. I mean, they are credentialed. You don't become a provider without some sort of credentials. But there's these three very specific things. You can look up Linda Moodell. You can look up Learning Revolution, Writing Revolution. Wilson is embedded in the public system, and you can try and find out where it's being used. Now, the other thing is that we're going to be having a learning disabilities conference in the fall.
Oh, right.
And so,
stay tuned.
Yeah, November 14th at the Brooklyn Public Library, we're going to be talking just about these things. So, I know that's a ways away, but we're planning and we're working on it right now. So, November 14th at the Brooklyn Public Library, save the date for a learning disabilities that we're hosting along with the Brooklyn Public Library.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't see any more questions, and so is this another question?
Well, that was Liz's question about beginning of the year.
Right. I think we answered that, right? So we're going to wrap it up, but again, just want to thank everybody and our technical support team. Thank you. And please reach out anytime. Our email information, info@includenyc.org, and our phone number here, our main office number is 212-677-6650. Is that right?
46.
No. Okay, let's say that again.
212-677-4660 is our resource line, and there's somebody live picking up that phone Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And they will do some intake with you, and they will set you off with an appointment to one of us who will talk to you one-to-one.
Yeah, Cheryl, I was just writing one more thing. Okay, good. We just put up our number. Cheryl, we see you. Ruth will check her email.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, everybody, and have a great summer.
Thank you.